Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank you very much for coming. We have a very special event today. You know, when we did an event like this about a year ago to sort of open this building, some of the guys who had been here, the Chung boys, had said, you know, it would be really wonderful if we could have a plaque for Dr. Shepherd up in the building. And so, of course, I said I'd look into that. I had no idea it was going to take a year. These things take time. And so we now have that. And it's really wonderful. You're going to love it. And actually, the Chamberlain Family Foundation, who I'd like to thank very much for cooperating, actually put up some other plaques. But the main plaque we're going to see was actually paid for by the guys. They said, we want to pay for this. It's really important to us. So we're really fortunate to have such an involved alumni group, I'll call them. So you guys, thank you very much. And then after we're going to do a little presentation here about Dr. Shepherd in the home. Won't go too long. And then I know several of them want to come up and say a few things, so they'll have the opportunity to do that then as well. I want to acknowledge we have a couple of elected officials here. In the far back, Al Miller, Director at Steve Sanitary. And back here, Doug Seiden, one of our elected directors for East Bay Regional Park District, who's currently the chairman. So you guys, thank you so much for coming. Thank you. And one of our city council people, Gabe Quinto, is here in the very back. He's hiding. Okay, we're going to start up our show here. And so that's, of course, Dr. Shepherd, and he was all about the kids. That was Milton Tom, and I just love that picture because it really epitomized Dr. Shepherd. He was all about the kids and nothing else. So that was our original Chung home, and it was built in 1923. So it wasn't built. They first occupied it in 1923, but how did they get there? So Dr. Shepherd was actually born in Reading, England in the 1800s, and he came to America about 1913, and then he went to, 1904, and he went to school, the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Kentucky, and graduated in 1913, and right after that, come on, okay. He immediately went to China, and he was in Canton, and he became a very fluent speaker of Cantonese, and he was there for 4 years. He came back to California in 1917, spent a couple months in St. Louis at, I guess we'd say, headquarters for the Baptist Church, and then came back to California to San Francisco, and immediately got involved in trying to reach out to a very underserved and oppressed Chinese community in San Francisco. Didn't take long before he ran into a woman named Donaldina Cameron. Donaldina Cameron was famous in San Francisco, or infamous. She was they called her the Angry Angel of Chinatown because she was very focused on helping Chinese women who've been enslaved or oppressed or into prostitution, whatever. She was known for going into brothels and chasing the men away and taking the women out to a home. She was a Presbyterian missionary, and they had the Occidental Mission Home first, Occidental Mission Home, and that's where a lot of those girls would go. That home was eventually named Cameron House. If any of you know Cameron House, it's a Presbyterian institution for kids. Anyway, Dr. Shepherd took all this in, was very inspired by what he said. He was also very challenged when she said to him one day, so what are you Baptists going to do about all the boys out there on the street? And he took that to heart, and he ended up founding Chung Home, and that was his first home. Let me just say, back in those days, 1923, if you were Chinese, you could live anywhere you wanted, as long as you lived in Chinatown in Oakland. Interracial foster child relationships were not allowed. Just getting this home in an industrial area in Berkeley was a major thing. The residents all protested, but he persisted, and they had this home. And more kids, he started finding more and more kids in San Francisco to get there. Plus, this was kind of in the way of when the state said we're going to start building the East Shore Freeway and the ramp at Ashland Avenue to get to the East Shore Freeway, so he had to find a new home. And he came to El Cerrito, and found a wonderful building that we're currently standing in. It actually opened in 1935, and this is a picture of it in 1936. We've got some wonderful pictures of this building with nothing around it. It's just amazing to see it. But that was when they really had, I would just say, their full-scale operation going. So we're going to take a look at a few pictures of the home and talk a little bit more about Dr. Shepard, who we're here to honor tonight. This was actually an old dairy farm they got here. 1935, El Cerrito was way out in the sticks. This was kind of, beyond, out of the civilized empire, right? I remember a woman I know who, when she moved here with her husband in 1930, she said, she was from San Francisco, and her parents said, "Will we ever see you again?" So it was very interesting. So these are the kids, in this room right here. They would eat. In the back there was the kitchen. They brushed their teeth together. They all bunked together. But keep in mind, they came here because literally they weren't orphans, but they really had parents who couldn't care for them or wouldn't care for them. They were considered to be incorrigible and untamable. And of course, we learned that with some care, that wasn't really the case. They went to all the local schools. This picture is about 1938, 1940. They originally went to Steed School out on Potrero Avenue, and they walked there every day. They actually walked there in formation every day. And then when Castro opened in the early 50s, they started going to Castro. They had famous drum and bugle corps. Even when they were in Berkeley, this was very well known. And the point of this was, it was an activity in which all the kids, regardless of their age, could take care of. And they learned regimentation, they learned rules, they learned something about music. But they were very famous, and they would perform frequently. Dr. Shepard really created a bicultural world for them, where they learned all about Chinese. There was a famous geneticist who came here and taught them Chinese. He would give the sermons and Sundays in Cantonese. So they were really immersed in two different worlds, and they lived that. There it is in 1947. Dr. Shepard right here, and Eddie Tong. They always said captain. They didn't call him the captain, they would say captain. And then Eddie Tong, lieutenant, and then Margaret Thompson, who was sort of the woman in charge of things. They had a well-known team, and they functioned very well. Just a little close-up on those. You can see we have all ages here. Another great picture of the guys and captain. So they played in a lot of local sports leagues. They played the B leagues, and I know some old timers here. One's 99. I just saw him this weekend up at the Veterans Home, and these kids, the guys from town would always say they played about 5 years older and about 30 pounds heavier than they looked. He said they really cared, and they weren't going to be pushed around by a bunch of white guys. And they were very well known for their skill and for their determination and their grit. There was a basketball team. I love this one. 1950 city champs, Castro School. And as we say down here, whoops, of 103 Chinese in El Cerrito, 80 of them were at the Chung home. Today, if you look at the demographics in El Cerrito, we're about 25% Asian. There, we had 23 if you didn't have the boys at the Chung home. So there's been a huge shift here. Basketball team. So, as we said, the unwanted and the incorrigible became very successful. You look at some of these guys, going to join the U.S. service, East to college, Los Angeles City College, photography, drafting school, pharmacy. I mean, these were kids who were given up on the streets in Chinatown, and they came here with love and attention, and look at what we got. And we got some of them here tonight. Just a few years before closing, a couple people in this room, one person in this room, there. A lot of them went in the military. And so that's the captain. That's the image that's on our plaque.
Now,
So we're going to have a couple of the guys come
say
up
that
now, 'cause they have a few
when I came on this, up to here, and I talked to the security guard, I told him how it looked, and he was overwhelmed, because I said, I'm a dinosaur, and I came out from the past to let you know what had transpired, that you can appreciate this wonderful building that transformed, and you see an actually live body here. And he didn't know what to say, but he was overwhelmed by what he saw. Not me, but by what has transpired here before. Not very many people know what has transpired. No, not very many people knew values that I learned, not only here in this room, but in other rooms, and it was Captain. Captain, I remember, and I'd like to share with you that I may be incorrigible and did something wrong, okay? I did something wrong, and we had what known as a penal system, that we would be punished, okay? And I remember him coming up to me and said, Richard, I am very disappointed in you, but I am not going to punish you, because I'm going to draw upon your bank of good behavior and going to debit your bank of good behavior versus what I've done. Nobody in the world has ever mentioned it. Can you imagine that if I got a traffic ticket, I went to the judge and said, I've never got a ticket before, would you debit my good behavior account? Isn't it logical? But it was Captain who had this foresight. And I also remember the second thing was that, Richard, you did something wrong again, and I'm very disappointed in you, very disappointed. But I will not punish you, because I know that our reputation, my faith in you will be built up. And he said it's like taking a beautiful piece of china and breaking it. I can glue this piece of china together, this plate, but there always will be cracks in this plate. And he called this the picture language. And I thought it was so wonderful to share with you this 2 little episodes. I enjoyed here because I got privileged, because I recognized the system. And I did my share. Phil did his share. I used to call this the punishment room. Actually, it was a banquet room. It was a dining hall. Because sometimes the food was so loudly that I thought I got punished. That Phil was serving me these meals. But these are little episodes I'd like to share with you. But most likely, I really, from my bottom of my heart, I'd like to thank the Chamberlain Foundation. Because if it wasn't for the foresight, and he just told me, he renovated this building before he got approval for this school. To me, it is outstanding. And let's give a hand to Mr. Now I'd like to turn the door of the meeting to Phil. You'd like to say something?
Sure. I'd like to share the genesis of all of this. 2003, we made a video which showed the history of the home. But before that, 2001, 2002, a group of us, Alan, Wing Soo Hoo, Jake said a couple of us, wanted to come up to visit the Windrush School. And they were very cooperative and let us look at the place, and we decided to have a reunion. One of the biggest problems that I had is trying to assemble the list of people that were formerly in the home. We have no list at all. It was by phone, by person, that we managed to get the people. So in between the time, Lynette Jin helped with me. She knows I'm a videographer, and I like to do things. So let's make a history of the home, of Captain, and what happened. So we made a video collecting all the old pictures, which you saw here, to give us the background. And it wasn't complete, but with the time that I had, that's how we were able to put the thing together. Fortunately, we had a person who saw our film and helped us with it, Mr. Panas. Otherwise, the history of the home There is no background. It is just this little initiative that the Historical Society saw this. We were going around and showing it different churches, and I didn't realize that 2003, 2016, that this video would have the impact that it has today. It is because of that start what we have that Tom brought to fruition. He's made this a historical site. He gave you a little bit of our background. I'm just giving you the genesis of how it started. Any questions? Anyway, that's my little bit, and I thank Tom and Mr. Chamberlain for the efforts that they have to put this together. This is an impossible dream come true. This is a historical site. What can I say? And I thank you.
I have a hard time with this. I'm going to be very slow. I'm not used to speaking in public. I have to read to you what I wrote. Sorry.
It's okay, take your time.
Yeah, take your time.
I want to thank Mr. Tom Panas for his hard work and getting his building on the historical registry, and Mr. and Mrs. Steve Chamberlain for furthering the building for educational purposes. When I was living here from 1943 to 1949, Captain and his staff would give us 10 minutes talk each morning before breakfast. One of the talks went like this. There were two poor young boys walking on a long, hot, dusty road, going into town to find work. They walked together on this long, hot, dusty road for many years. As the years passed, they became successful and wealthy. One day, as they were walking together, one of the boys stopped and turned to his friend. He said, I have walked this long, hot, dusty road for many years, and now I am successful and wealthy. I am going to build a monument to myself so that anybody else walking this long road will know that I used to walk through here. He then turned and asked the other boy, you too are successful and wealthy. What are you going to do? The boy hesitated briefly and said to him, I'm going to build a water fountain that whoever walks through here will have a cool drink of water. I think of Donald Trump with all his several homes, many golf courses, Trump Tower, and his jet plane with a huge Trump pin on it. He certainly built a monument to himself. I think of Mr. and Mrs. Chamberlain. They built a water fountain so that all who pass through this building will have a cool drink of education. These stories and similar to this was taught to us every morning for 10 minutes before breakfast. Charles R. Shepard, better known as Captain to us, was born in Redmond, England. He attended a seminar in Kentucky. He received a doctor's degree in theology, and soon afterwards he decided to go to China as a missionary. Upon completion the assignment, he arrived in San Francisco, Chinatown, observed many young children being neglected. Some were constantly in trouble with the law, some were orphans. It moved him deeply, and he said to himself, something must be done. At that time, he met Donaldina Cameron, a missionary representing the Presbyterian Church who was working with young Chinese girls. They discussed the matter, and Donaldina Cameron encouraged Captain to start a home. Captain proceeded to talk to the elders of Chinatown, who at first thought the project was impractical, and they were not sure they could trust a stranger, and worse, a Caucasian stranger. Once he secured their trust, he approached local churches to augment some of the financing. Many churches turned him down, some gave him support. He approached the American Baptist Church, and after lengthy discussions, they agreed to be a major sponsor. The next problem was to find a location. The search for the site was limited because of the limited funds. Berkeley was chosen as the site for the home, but not without heated opposition from the local community. The Berkeley Council finally approved of the chosen site. Captain started out with 7 boys in an old building. The number of children grew, but the home was torn down because of eminent domain. It was in the path of the new freeway. Search for a new home began, and El Cerrito was chosen, but not without many problems. Purchase of the land was partially paid with money the boys had earned themselves. Captain was a man of boundless energy. In addition to writing 5 books, the story of Chung being one of them, the book is out of print but can be found at the Berkeley Library or at the El Cerrito Historical Society. Captain spent many days and nights giving speeches to the churches and civic groups to promote the home and solicit donations. The money for the Baptist Church was limited, so he arranged for the boys to pick fruit to earn money, much like the illegal immigrants are doing today. We also went door to door to sell firewood, among other works. He heard a few boys grumble, and he told them, "It is not right for us to ask for money from others if we don't try to earn some ourselves." He did most of the purchasing of food, often at discount prices. Food was often donated. He befriended a doctor who donated his service to give the boys an annual checkup. On weekends, on summers, he'd take us to places like Golden Gate Park, San Francisco Zoo, Playland at the beach, Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, Alum Rock, Tilden Park, among other places. But each year we enjoyed the Shrine Circus. He arranged for some of us to have lunch on an aircraft carrier sponsored by the Navy. Several years later, the boys had another lunch on another aircraft carrier. The boys also had free bowling, free swimming. Once a roller skate owner closed his rink down for the boys to enjoy roller skating. He had managed to get one of the boys interviewed on the Bob Hope program. Bob Hope interviewed the boys. Part of that proceeds of that program went to Chung Home. How many parents give their children all of this? At that time, I and many other boys hated to be in Chung Home. But looking back at my golden years, it was my golden years, and I did not recognize it. We had an annual paper drive. We worked on it for 2 weeks. Captain worked alongside of us as a worker. Even with his busy schedule, he found time to work just like we did. The money earned was to pay for the boys to spend 2 weeks each year at a summer camp. During World War II, many boys were drafted. They went to war. They wrote back to Captain to tell them that it was his teachings that gave them the strength to endure the loneliness and hardship of war. They fought in some of the most fierce battles, the Battle of the Bulge being one of them. One day, he received a letter from the State Department informing him that one of his boys was killed in action. Captain began to cry. Not only cried, but sobbed. He sobbed for approximately 3 whole minutes. He sobbed uncontrollably and unashamedly. After all, these were the boys he raised from a very young age to military age. 7 did not come back. 2 did not return from Korea. Captain's reputation became widely known. Virtually every shopkeeper in San Francisco Chinatown knew of him. Also many of the local communities. His reputation was wide, and there was boys sent from other states as far as Salt Lake City, Portland, Oregon, and Southern California, and probably other places that I don't know about. Captain was not a wealthy man. He could have made more money if he chose it in another line of work. He surely was devoted to us. I returned to visit Chung one day, and Miss Thompson, Captain's longtime and devoted secretary, told me that the home was being closed. I asked her why. She told me that they didn't have the need to care for young boys as it was not as great as it used to be. Parents now have better jobs and better able to take care of their children. Besides, donations were not coming in as they used to be. To get financing, they would need to ask the government for funding. Captain did not want that. He did not want any government to tell him how to operate going home. He was at retirement age and getting tired and decided to call it quits. He closed the home. On behalf of the many Chung boys, I want to thank again Mr. Tom Panas and Mr. and Mrs. Steve Chamberlain for preserving this building and using it for educational purposes. Also, I want to thank all you visitors who are interested to know more about Charles R. Shepard, better known as Captain. I'm going to tell you something that I don't think very many people in this room know. I was unwanted. I was thrown here. I was left here. I left here at 12. The people that brought me here still didn't want me. At 13 and a half, I told them, I'm leaving, I'm not coming back. Didn't even look up, say anything to me, I never returned. Been on my own since then. I was homeless once briefly. With Captain's words, and there's some papers I want to pass out as the things that we were taught. Would you please pass that out? That's what got me through life.
At the age of 4.5, I was orphaned. At 5, I was put into Chung home. At the time I spoke only Chinese, couldn't communicate, didn't know what was happening. I was afraid. It took a while to realize that I was in good hands. I started to communicate and began to be molded by Captain. He taught us many things. In my 10 years in the home, from the time I was 5 to 15, Dr. Shepard was trying to mold all the boys into men. That the captain being a man didn't mean being 21 years old. That was important to him. I remember when he picked the song, God Send Us Men, he would say, God make us men. He came up with Chung May purpose, the Chung May chant, and the Chung May alphabet as the purpose was established in 1940, before 1940, before I got here. It was to create, let's all get along together, and let everybody know that the rules of the home were to be obeyed. Then the chant was established to bring God into our lives. The alphabet was established in 1945, approximately, to inspire good character. Hopefully, the chant and the alphabet was handed out. If not, I can recite them, because they've been with me all my life. When I left Chung May home, I had the same anxiety and uncertainty I had when I first was taken there 10 years before. I had the same feeling when I entered the service, when I entered and left military service. These times of stress, strife, and tribulation, I think of what the Chung May chant said, and it's this part that says, for it's easy enough to be happy when life flows along like a song. Man worthwhile is the man that can smile when everything goes dead wrong. So acquit yourselves like men, be strong. And though everything seems dead against you, carry on, carry on. Carry on.
47. I was supposed to be adopted by a white family, but in those days it was illegal to be adopted by your non-race. I remember coming here and I was scared. I was 4.5 years old, and we used to live in a dorm upstairs here, and there was a bunch of us that were very good friends. I remember everything that Wing said and talking about marching to school and things like that. I remember the paper drive. I remember walking up to the Boy Scout camp up here. We used to swim up there for free. And one of the things that I like to do was when we had dinner, they put a big pot in the center, and if you ate fast, you got seconds. Otherwise, you didn't get it. And Captain took me in, and he was like a father. I left here when I was about 11.5 years old. I went over to Edgewood, and he came over to see me at Edgewood to make sure that I went to the First Baptist Church over on 19th Avenue. He followed up, and I talked to him for about 3 years after I left the home. And everybody else has said everything else, so I don't want to repeat everything. But I know there are 2 kids younger here than me, Johnny and Victor Jin. That's all I remember about them. I remember that when we used to take baths, Wing used to give me a bath. He was like a big brother to me.
Excuse me
And,
one minute. He was 5 and I was 10 and a half. I did it for him 3 months, twice a week, every Tuesday night, every Saturday night. Then they gave me another 3-month allotment of that job, and I hated it.
And the funny thing is, if we took a bath, 3 boys had to use the same water.
Not when I did it.
But anyway, all I remember is that when we went over to the First Baptist Church of Berkeley, and that's where we went, and I was baptized over there, and Captain treated me like a son, and one of his favorite sayings is, "Onward, Christian soldiers."
Bill's younger brother, he was 5 years older than me, and I thought I was the youngest one there. I was there in 1944, I believe, and I didn't know anything. And so when I grew up in Jungmei, it was a wonderful experience for me. I had a great time there. I talked to some alumni, and they said the food was bad, the discipline was too strong, and I just grew up with it because that was what I learned when I was young, and it was easy for me to assimilate this. It's carried me on into the future. I've put myself through college, never had any help from parents, didn't know that you had help from parents, but you just work and you go to school. I graduated from UC Berkeley, went to UCSF, became a pharmacist, and I didn't have any help. I'm not bragging about it, but that's just what you do. You learn to take care of yourself. You work hard. You share your experiences. You do the right things, and if you read the alphabet, I live by that. And I pass it on to my kids, and I even was playing golf with a fellow, and we were talking about families and growing up, and I told him I was in boarding school, and I live by this alphabet. He said, "Can you mail it to me?" So I mailed it to this fellow I didn't even know. But it's been a wonderful experience for me, and I have nothing but good things to say about it. Some of the alumni were saying, the food was bad. Well, food is food. You eat it. At dinner you don't like it, well, you have breakfast tomorrow morning. So you learn to eat your food. I don't know how many parents here give kids that option of just eat now, if you don't like it, eat tomorrow. Well, we learned that, so I never complained about food, good or bad. I remember in the afternoons we'd have called canteen at 4 o'clock, I believe it was. We'd get little snacks. We used to get Gerber's baby food. And I would get the vanilla or the chocolate, you know, those are the best ones. And we'd have candy bars. And some of the candy bars had nuts in them. Quite often, if they had nuts, they had worms in them. So you just pick the nuts out and eat the chocolate. You know, and we had a lot of food that was donated by local butchers were outdated. And I remember the bologna was green on the outside. You tear the green off, eat the center. And it was no big chore. It was just, you just do it. You live by that. And you've learned to go through life. That's the way it is. You just take charge and get through it. So it's been a wonderful experience for me. I lived it all my life, and my wife can vouch for how I am. I still cook, dishes, toilets, all that. She won't let me iron because one time I was doing ironing, and she had a pleated skirt, so I ironed it. She said, "What happened to my skirt?" I ironed it. There's no pleats on it. I don't iron anymore, so now I don't iron, but I do everything else. And it's not as if I'm a hero or doing the right things. It's just I grew up doing this, so the experience I got in Jungmei was wonderful for me. I went in the military, went in the Air Force. It was a picnic. Discipline? It was nothing, because we had discipline at the home. And we were only at 5 to 7, 10 years old, and we learned it. So as you get older, discipline is no big deal. So it was a wonderful experience for me. I can only say that I'm glad I was there. I even went on a trip with some friends to Europe and had a Korean family with us. I was telling her and her 2 kids about my life growing up. And she said, "Can I send my kids there?" I said, "Sorry, that was closed about 40 years ago." But she was excited that the discipline that I had had and how I take things in life, and it's done very well for me. And I thank Mr. Chamberlain for continuing this school here, because this place is beautiful. When we were here, it wasn't like this, and this is fabulous. And I thank you for continuing the legacy of Jungmei.
So this is on behalf of the California State Assembly. We have a certificate of recognition honoring Dr. Charles R. Shepard, founder of the Chung home. So, do you want to read it?
Sure, why don't you go ahead and read it?
Whereas in 1923, Chung home for boys was opened in Berkeley, and in 1935 moved to a new home off Elm and Hill Streets in El Cerrito. And whereas from 1923 to 1954, Chung home cared for nearly 700 Chinese boys, all under the leadership of Dr. Charles R. Shepard, who was affectionately called Captain. Though the home was run like a tight ship with a bell ringing system and drum and bugle corps, each boy knew that he was cared for. And whereas for over 30 years he was a father to those who were considered outcast by society, he fought the discrimination of his day to make their lives better. He toiled endlessly so that each would have a better future. Now therefore be it resolved by Assemblymember Tony Thurman that he takes great pleasure in honoring the legacy of Dr. Charles R. Shepard for his decades of commitment to a generation of Chinese boys whose lives were changed forever by his leadership and compassion.
There's a pin here, and a pin here, and you leave it down. Why don't you get that one? On three.
There's one more there.
1, 2, 3. Oh, there it is. Our friend the captain. You guys, thanks so much.
How do you say cheese in Chinese? Cheese?
Thank you. Okay. Let's go back inside and.
Healthy, safe, and stable home for the nearly 700 boys who were given shelter at the Junmei home until it closed in 1950.
I don't remember you.
Dr. Shepard, simply known as Captain, was born in Reading, England in 1885. Came to America in 1904.
Richard Mark.
Okay, got a couple more pictures. Got a couple more pictures here. I can see a couple more people want these pictures. And then we have to unveil it. Can't get people away before we do that.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Okay. Okay.
Chris is getting one more here. Okay, you ready? Okay, so Wing and William, why don't you just take care of that? There we go.